Good evening, everybody. This is Monica Guzman coming to you once again on a weekend evening or very late night, very early morning, wherever you may be. So, this is Memorial Day weekend, and I wanted to cover some American history in regards to Memorial Day. And hopefully, those of you who have lost loved ones are having the opportunity to remember your fallen family members, but also, you're taking the time to also celebrate the life that they lived because these are our bravest. These are our just, it takes a special person to enlist in the military and to make the sacrifices that they make for their country. More and more, we see that there are no men who are willing to do that. And if they are, right now, the American military is undergoing a purge. So we're definitely living in interesting times. Uh, so my contribution again is just going through American history dating back hundreds of years ago and just helping to be part of the catalyst to restart America in the tradition that was intended by the founding fathers and then few generations that came after them going through the early 1900s, namely with American baseball and those American pioneers of the sport of baseball. So I went ahead and posted two links for this video. The first one is a PDF that I believe this PDF was actually meant for federal workers to let them know what days off they have with paid time off. But it came in handy for me because I've used it to study the origin of giving, the origin of Veterans Day, the origin of Memorial Day in this case. And so I want to, I'm going to read a couple passages to you tonight from each of these documents. The other document is, has to do with the Grand Army of the Republic and Kindred Societies. This society is most responsible for helping get veterans organizations off the ground. And it's extremely pertinent to the undertaking that I've taken on because Americans didn't develop bureaucracy. Americans didn't do centralization. This is very much these two concepts of centralization and bureaucracy are very from the 1900s. I pointed out to you that the American bureaucracy really grew in the 1960s when Americans started to truly lose control of their country. And so I was reading this document again. I read it last year when I was doing research on Veterans Day. And I was rereading it today, and I hope that some of you out there will have the level of appreciation that I do for the American spirit, American traditions, American mindset. It's very much in line with the points that I'm trying to get across and very much in line with the project that I'm going to try to get off the ground next year. And so, okay, let's go ahead and dive in. So this document, Federal Holidays, Evolution and Current Practices, again, it's a PDF. And it came from, let's see, the Congressional Research Service, published May 9th, 2014. And again, I believe that the purpose of the document was actually to help federal workers understand when they have paid time off. But okay. So Memorial Day actually started off as Decoration Day. And after the Civil War, see, back in the late 1800s, or maybe even through, let's say, before World War I, government was made up of veterans, right? Today, government is made up of a bunch of bureaucrats or people who threaten people not to allow them to join polite society with them because they have a different point of view. So, so what happened was, sorry, you guys, I didn't have a good hair day today, so apologies for that. So you've got all these veterans in government after the Civil War, and they started what was known back then as Decoration Day. And what they would do on their version of Memorial Day is they would go visit the cemeteries and the places where their fellow soldiers were laying to rest. And so on that day, no one would show up for work. And so these Americans were willing to lose a day's wages to go honor their fallen peers. And so Decoration Day was just something logical that would get launched given the rate of absenteeism. And again, so it had a lot to do with the Grand Army of the Republic. All of these men were members and they talked to each other and they communicated with each other. So therefore, they missed work on that day as a group in large numbers. I believe they give the amount of federal workers. No. In the PDF, they don't give the statistic of the number of veterans that were in government. But in 1888, Decoration Day, now known as Memorial Day, was officially established. And so they were given the opportunity to go ahead and pay their respects to their fellow peers who had fallen in battle. And they were able to maintain a day's wages, which, I mean, it was a lot different in those days, right? Where some people have aptly pointed out that back in those days, musicians, entertainers actually had to sing for their supper. So they didn't live in times when today you have a salary or you have a record deal that allows you to make money while you're sleeping, the passive income streams and whatnot. It was a lot different. So it was a big deal for these men to go ahead and lose a day's wages to go honor, again, their fallen peers. And so what happened with this this bill that was passed in the 1960s was it made these federal holidays uniform. But in the 1960s, again, Americans are losing control of their country. It was the interest of retailers that caused the government to put together this bill to force these federally recognized holidays to land on a Monday, as opposed to their original calendar date. Now, the veterans are the only organization that pushed back, and that's why we celebrate Veterans Day November 11th of every year, regardless of the day of the week that it falls on. Everything else gets tied to retail interest. So Memorial Day is the official kickoff of summer, right? And it's I mean a good it's a good reason for families to get together. It's definitely a wonderful reason for families of fallen soldiers to go visit their graves, um, without them missing work because it doesn't land on a Wednesday or right a Tuesday is a little difficult as well. So they get this long weekend to honor their family, which is great, or their friends. I've got a couple of issues with this uniform bill because what happens is we all hear about the Memorial Day sale or the Labor Day sale. And hey, I am someone who takes advantage of the discounts and whatnot. But at the same time, what happened was we started losing feeling for the reason for the holidays. Like, for example, while I've been researching this stuff, I don't know how I feel about Christmas anymore. It's kind of based in consumerism and it's also based in paganism. So, right, I'm a little um in the air about my feelings about Christmas. But I will get to that once we get to December, and then by then I'll, I'll have a chat going on, and we'll see how that goes because I've heard that can be a sketchy place. But we'll see if there's enough people with opinions that want to voice them at that point. So let's get back to Memorial Day and let's discuss the Grand Army of the Republic and Kindred Societies. The link is posted in the live stream's description, so I encourage you guys to take a read. It's not very long. So the Grand Army of the Republic was one man's project, and he formed it with 11 other guys. And they got it together April 6, 1866. By July 12th, 1866, there was a convention, and there were 9 charters on the books at that point. And so they held their first actual convention November 20th, 1866, and I believe they held it in Indianapolis. So this falls in line with what I call the Ben Franklin model. The Ben Franklin model was started because Philadelphia was seeing way too many fires, and Benjamin Franklin felt like they could do something about it. So he formed groups of men on a volunteer basis who were charged with preventing fires and answering fires. And the groups could only be 30 men large. And thereafter, Ben Franklin encouraged them to form their groups of 30. And so that was the beginning of the fire department in America. And so here you've got this other man who was a veteran from the Union side, and let's see, he served in the 14th Infantry during the Civil War. I believe he was a surgeon. He managed to get together 11 other guys, and they put together this organization. I actually haven't looked up if the Grand Army still exists, but in 1890, there were 400,000 members. So they got their start in 1866 with 12 dudes total. By 1890, they grew to over 400,000 members. And again, I want to emphasize that this is very American. There were 400,000 members in their own charters. So this wasn't a movement, a centralized, this was a decentralized organization with charters that met at a convention at least once a year. This is very in line with the Ben Franklin model, and it's very in line with something that I'm working on for next year. And it's something that I'm encouraging men to do. Form your groups of 30 participants. I pointed out an example. There's a men's group in a nearby community that gets together on a daily basis, and whoever can show up, shows up. There's no attendance, there's no expectations. And they sit there and they have breakfast together, and they discuss whatever's going on at the time, which is decentralized, and the way we need to get we need to start going back to these types of methods. The reliance on government has to end or decrease significantly. We've got to figure this stuff out, because this dependence on government isn't healthy for the country. But okay, so some of the GAR members included Grant, Hayes, Garfield, Harrison, and McKinley. They wore a uniform, double-breasted dark blue coat with bronze buttons and a black wide brim slouch felt hat. A Bronze Star badge hung from a chiffon flag. I mean, this is amazing stuff. Like, I'm rereading this again, and I'm sorry, it's just awesome what they did. Okay, so the organization was based upon 3 objectives: fraternity, charity, and loyalty. This is exactly the model that I want to follow when getting my project off the ground. And I say my because it's my brainchild right now, but it's by no means am I trying to claim ownership over it. I hope that others pick it up and you roll with it. Again, this is about decentralization and keeping things local. So the first ideal was encouraged through regular locally scheduled meetings and joint gatherings with members from other posts. Again, very, very decentralized. Regular meetings, they met with other members and nearby posts, and they discussed issues that pertain to them. Their campfire was their most popular activity. A group, so they would meet in halls, and they would sit around dinner tables singing old war songs, recounting wartime experiences, and swapping accounts of their deeds. This reminds me of the veteran lodges, right? I believe still exist today in some cities, where it's a space for veterans to gather, especially now with PTSD is so prominent among so many members. They need their own, right? Who's going to understand veteran better? Other veterans, especially in these times that we're living in, where the military is being purged of Americans. So they need each other. And I encourage them to meet and to talk and to become a stronger voice for themselves, given that the government is actively against you. You need to form your own. You need your gatekeepers. You need your own way to protect yourselves. Is the best way that I can put it right now. Um, so the Grand Army, the GAR, had I mean they were in 22 states, various cities from Maine to Oregon that hosted. Railroads offered special discount rates and scheduled special trains for them. Many members who wished to relive their warriors found quarters in tents. I'm not kidding you guys. This is the kind of stuff that we're doing. Airbnb wants to ban you. All right, let them ban you. Find other methods of transportation, accommodations. This is just we've reached a point where you've got to draw lines. You don't have to announce that you're boycotting such and such corporation. You don't have to bring attention to yourself. Just do it. Just do it. So they set up a fund for needy veterans, widows, and orphans of veterans. And this is actually in line with, this is another form of life insurance, right? And that's something that, again, Ben Franklin's responsible for. And this, what they did had no dependence on government. They did it on their own. And that's what I'm encouraging. And that's what I'm trying to promote is help your own. Life insurance, you're helping your own. Mutual insurance, you're helping your own. And on top of that, you're being your own bank. I mean, this article is just, I love it. I mean, I'm not an American by blood, but it makes me proud to have American citizenship. Americans are so intelligent. Americans have such a wonderful history and legacy. You should be, if you're a blood descendant of Americans, you should be so proud. Okay, so then what do you do with the women, right? So the GAR set up auxiliary organizations, the Women's Relief Corps, the Ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic, the Daughters of the Union Veterans of the Civil War, the Auxiliary to the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, were affiliates. And that gives the women something to do. That gives, like, the daughters of veterans something to do. It gave the sons of veterans something to do. You know, the veterans needed their space, right? Their own space. We've got to, again, if you think men are evil, why do you think that? Are you an African who has experienced domestic violence by another African, and a member of your family? I understand why you believe men are evil. Are you someone who has worked in Hollywood and was harassed by a Hollywood executive? Okay, I understand why you think men are evil. Are you someone who, let's see, so cultural and then workplace are the two main ones, right? Now, more people are having these experiences, right? Because America is becoming less American. But we also need to start profiling where these experiences are occurring. Hollywood is not American. And we know that the people with the highest domestic violence rates is the African community, followed by Hispanic, followed by white, and then Asian. So we've got to take into account when it happens culturally or when it happens at the workplace at the hands of non-American cultures. Okay, so the GAR gave the women, the daughters, and the sons something to do through auxiliary organizations, which I think is outstanding. Okay, so loyalty. They fostered loyalty. And they did it through constant reminders to those who had not lived through the war, the significance of the GAR. So I think of this as the elders, the gatekeepers, told their stories to the younger generations, and then the younger generations told their sons and daughters, right? And so this American storytelling is obviously something that has faded away. So I'm helping whomever comes across these videos, I'm helping you, I'm encouraging you to restart telling these stories. If you have veterans, you have fallen soldiers in your family, we've got to tell these stories. There is a project, I'm not sure if it's still going on, but long ago, Living History, veterans that were still living were interviewed. It's something I'll look up and share with you guys later on. Okay, so the GAR was based in fraternal activities. So they focused on veterans solely. But then, like everything else, I guess they evolved into politics. And then they became involved officially in national politics. The rank and file soon realized the value of presenting a solid front to make demands upon legislators and congressmen. So the GAR became so powerful. Then, it gets dicey, right? Anybody who disagreed with the GAR agenda was a target. And so, like everything else, a movement starts to go sideways. But if you're Washington and your Jeffersons and your Ben Franklins, things are less likely to devolve into greed. Washington was definitely a God-fearing man. I believe he had no vices. I know it's hard to find someone like that, but I believe it's worth the effort to find those kinds of leaders among us. And if you have to push somebody forward, those are the kinds of men you want to push forward. So in 1862, Lincoln approved a bill that granted pensions to the soldiers who were permanently disabled as a result of military service. In 1879, there were payment conditions. And then the GAR became a pressure group. Now, as far as the government goes, there are several things that need to get rolled back. I don't believe that we should be presenting new legislation. We should be erasing laws, right? So I don't know what the final numbers for Trump were or was, but for every new law, every new bill that got passed, Trump struck down 3. So that's one of the reasons why he rolled back so much bureaucracy and legislation. And we all know that under Biden, it's coming back probably twofold. So that needs to get fixed somehow. whether it's through the elections in 2022, 2024, we'll see, right? If you guys are gathering on the local level, you'll be able to affect this kind of change because among you, you'll be able to count your votes, right? Like, meaning if you form a group of 30 that you trust, you can see for yourselves how your block is going to vote. And then you extend that by making friends with other groups in surrounding neighborhoods. I don't know if you could go surrounding states, but that's one way to prevent fraud, right? You take count amongst yourselves and you estimate based on your um, local counts, and then you kind of take it from there. Okay, so Decoration Day is a legacy that was set up by the GAR. This is actually a cool tidbit. So the decoration of the graves actually took place on May 30th, 1868. So the tradition of decorating the graves goes back that far. And I remember a couple years ago, I believe it was Tucker Carlson that did a segment on it. The African community was trying to segregate itself on Memorial Day. And somehow Tucker Carlson got an interview with someone, and the representative, I believe it was in New York, was saying, well, Memorial Day is an African thing. So once again, you've got a couple of African leaders trying to lay claim to a tradition that's American, but they believe they invented, right? So you've got the NFL, you've got Africans who say they invented the NFL. I don't think they've said that about the NBA, but I can tell you that if they try to make that claim in MLB, I've released enough information out there that easily knocks down the argument. It's just very false. American baseball comes from England and it evolved from Rounders and obviously the Knickerbockers and something about a cat, some sort of game that they played that had cat in the name. The first recollection of somebody playing a version of baseball back to 1829 with Dr. Wendell at Harvard. So there are tons of stuff out there that says, no, you did not invent baseball, African community. Okay, so Memorial Day itself, Civil War. The tradition of decorating the graves started in 1868. The Grand Army of the Republic is the first veterans organization, and the system that they use to form their group to get to 400,000 members started off with 12 men, 12 veterans, and in a span of just over 20 years, 25, right? Somewhere around there. They grew from 12 to 400,000. And that's something that I hope we grab onto. That's American. That's what Americans did. That's how they got together and formed their groups. There was no one person preaching. There was no one leader. There were small groups of Americans that attended conventions, they did the same thing in baseball. So before American baseball, before integration and MLB, every club that wanted to play in a particular city and wanted to be considered part of the league paid dues. And then once a year they used to attend a convention where they would voice their concerns, make their suggestions, they voted on stuff. And so this is how Americans operate. Bureaucracy is not American. 1860s and on. But again, America at that time, Americans were losing control of America by that point. So I encourage you guys to read these two documents. I'm going to keep talking about this type of architecture, infrastructure for restarting America. It's in our best interest to get this country back to its roots, its traditions. This is how we do it. We do it at the local level. This has nothing to do with grassroots. It's just Americans getting together and helping themselves fix whatever ails their community directly. These cities that are completely broken down, it's time to start exploring what can be done. I don't want to give too much because I know other people take from the other side, and so hopefully toward the end of the year, I don't think I would attend any of those CPACs and stuff, but I will find some way to communicate with some of you guys to start getting some of this stuff off the ground. Again, I don't want to give everything away because it's like everything else, right? I'm sure the people who got the internet off the ground, what was in the 70s, never meant it to be used as a tool to censor Americans on American soil, but here we are, right? We have to self-censor ourselves. There's a lot of alternative platforms, but again, if you follow my Twitter at all, if you watch these videos at all, you know, you know, you know the situation, and so I'm going to start wrapping this up. To those of you out there who lost somebody, I, you know, I understand it's a time to mourn, but hopefully you'll take a time to celebrate their life as well. Hopefully they left behind children, namely sons. We need to encourage the bravest among us to continue passing on the genes. DJ LeMahieu is a dad now, so it's pretty cool that he's going to get to celebrate his first Father's Day pretty soon. I mean, obviously, I have no idea how he plans, whether he plans to keep growing his family or not, but I really hope that there is a junior that will be able to carry on his baseball acumen and just he's a good person overall. He's got these characteristics that are just outstanding. And so hopefully he'll be able to keep passing those on. So we need to figure out how to get Americans to pass on their good genes so that the best of America can continue to roll on. So this Memorial Day weekend, I hope everyone stay safe, get together with your family, remember your family members who fell during battle, and just enjoy each other's company. So I thank you again for watching. Thank you for lending me your ear. I really appreciate it. And okay, so I don't think I will be prepared to do a weekday live stream this week. So I'm going to discuss the opioid situation. I know right now we're not hearing about it, but I want to talk about um, some of the origins of synthesized drugs that have captured Americans. I know right now fentanyl is lethal, taking down Americans left and right. Scott Adams does a lot on fentanyl and China. I'm coming at this more from a writer's perspective. 2 years ago now, I've written a lot on it. I didn't know anything about the opioid epidemic before. I just received a lot of assignments, and I wrote thousands and thousands of words on the subject in several variations, meaning I wrote about just several of the opioids and then several of the drugs that stem off of it. Uh, right, the opioid epidemic hit the USA in 3 waves. I think we're entering the 4th wave, and it's awful. It is awful what's happening to Americans. Again, we don't know right now the statistics. I'm going to check the CDC to see if they've updated anything, but we're not hearing about it because of what's happening with the pandemic. But I think what I'm going to do next week, I'm going to talk about it, and I don't have it near me, but I have it's not a book, it's a very tiny workbook that's like $20, but I found it for $1. And I'm very happy about that. I want to show you some of the origins of the opioid epidemic beyond, I believe it was in 1913 when the USA passed the first Banned Substance Act that outlawed cocaine. Let's come join me next weekend, same time. I'm going to try to get on Saturday in a little bit earlier, but then definitely Sunday at the same time. Start exploring. I want you to explore these origins of these drugs, synthesized drugs with me. I don't believe that treating people with opioids is the answer. I don't believe that messing with Americans' brains is the answer. I'm sorry. I don't believe medicating Americans is the answer either. I believe that there are nefarious intentions behind the decriminalization of pot and then stronger drugs. I believe there are very nefarious intentions, and anybody who tries to sell you psychedelics as a treatment, I would question their character and their morality. I mean, there are cities now where you cannot walk outside without inhaling secondhand pot smoke. And it's just disgusting, the environment that we're expected to live in now because of non-American cultures that run America just seeking every single way to crush the American, and they are succeeding. They're doing extremely well. And so it's disgusting what's happening. We've got to reverse this stuff, and I think we can do it. It just takes one person at a time. So next weekend, join me again, Saturday, Sunday night, and then I believe I should be ready to start going daytime. And I do respect Scott Adams. Maybe one day I'll have a conversation with him and I can clear up his position on some things. I have a belief of where they stem from, and I'm okay with being wrong. But I do respect Scott Adams, so I would try to go daily before his 7 o'clock. I believe he owns the 7 o'clock time slot. I would try to go before, maybe like 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, or after him, which would be about 8 o'clock in the mornings Pacific Standard Time. So we'll see how it goes. But so again, join me next weekend. Let's talk opioid epidemic and its impact on Americans. I hope you guys enjoy your if you have the day off tomorrow, I hope you enjoy it. If you are somebody impacted directly by Memorial Day, I hope you have the opportunity to visit the grave, to remember your loved one, your friend, um, and everybody stay safe out there. Not because of the pandemic, but just stay safe in general, right? I'll see everybody next weekend. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Have a good Memorial Day.